We're about ready to kick off on this old Atwater Camp 145. What a mess. We got ourselves a problem here, people. But you know, I think we can pull it off. I hope we can pull it off. Everything is frozen on it. Nothing works. Well, I guess I get a little, I thought I got a turn in. Oh, I got a little bit of turn out of that one right there. The dial scale will have to be replaced. I found out I can buy a new one of those. They're a reproduction. That should be cool. I don't want to use that old cracked one. I want to get a decent one. Anyway, anytime you start in a project like this, what we're going to, first of all, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to remove everything. Everything is coming off this chassis to include the tube sockets. This chassis will be nothing but a piece of metal when I'm done inside and out. Then we're going to derust it, and we're going to make it look really good. We're going to drill out every one of these rivets holding these sockets in. Everything's coming off. I mean, it's just going to be a piece of bent metal. That's all there is to it. All the parts will be laying elsewhere. What I've been doing, and what you should do anytime you decide to work on any radio you're not all that familiar with, try to get a hold of your, your documentation, like I said, your paperwork. Paperwork is all important when working on a radio. And what I've done is I've spent the last few hours just kind of sitting here going over the schematic, becoming familiar with it, looking at this, looking at that. And I have numbered all of the tube pins like I normally do. Very good idea to do that, Just go to on the internet or a tube manual, get everything that, the control grid, screen grid, suppressor grid, cathode plate. Mark every one of the tube pins. Put the numbers next to it so you don't have to struggle with it later. It's already on the schematic. Also, I highlighted every transformer. Here's T1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down here is number 6, which is the audio output transformer. We don't have one of those. Inside this green area is the speaker. And of course, we don't have a speaker for this. We're going to be putting a modern speaker on it. We're going to convert this thing from field coil to permanent magnet speaker. I'm going to show everybody how to do that. That's going to be fun if you've never done it before. For those of you, once again, who have done all this stuff, none of this is going to matter because you know how to do it. This is folks who have never done it and would like to learn. And yeah, there's going to be some mistakes made along the way. I am not a perfect person. Anyway, over here is T7, which is the power transformer. One of the things I did was, here is T1, T2, and T3. Now T3 is the oscillator. T1 and T2 are a couple of RF coils. That's your antenna coils. Now this one right here, I know from an Atwater can I used to work on, that this is a two-piece coil. It's not just one solid, center cardboard or whatever that thing is made out of. And I remember when I worked on the Atwater Can 856, the top part was loose. And guess what? This one's loose also. I'm going to have to glue that in place before I do much more. Get that thing solidly glued before I remove it. Anyway, I went around and I checked each of the pin numbers. You couldn't hardly read them on the schematic. They were so bad. So I went ahead, I blew it up real big on the computer, and then I numbered each of the pin numbers on each of the coils. Now this is T1 in the front. This is T2 right here. And T3 is the oscillator, which is on the bottom. This is T3 right here. That's the oscillator coil. All right. So what I have to do before we do anything, now that I've familiarized myself with the schematic, which is what you should do, familiarize yourself with it. And then mark each of your transformer locations on the drawings, anything else. There's the T3 at the bottom, the oscillator coil. Go through and circle it. Here's where there's some changes that were made to the chassis on later models as compared to the earlier models, and the position of the parts are different on later models because they eliminated a couple of things. Familiarize yourself with what you need to do. Don't just plunge into a radio project and expect everything to go fine without doing your homework. It's not going to work, okay? You must do your homework. And I kind of went over to find out what sections I don't need. So these instructions cover more than one radio, and I'm only going to cover the 145. Here's the parts list that I need. I became familiar with it. And I also went out on the internet and I found some chassis photographs, some good chassis photographs of a good Atwater Kent Model 145, the underside and the top side. And I blew them up. You know, this is going to really come in handy later on when I'm not quite sure, maybe, about where a wire was to begin with, and somebody may have changed it. And this is the top part, and I labeled the IF cans where my thumb is, and I labeled T1, T2 right here. And I'm looking, I wanted a good drawing or a good picture of the top part of this also, and I got one right there. And I made it even larger for here. Okay? Do your homework. Get everything ready. I just kind of hope this chassis remotely looks as good as this one. Next thing I did was I decided, we need to check out these coils. All these coils need to be checked out. T1, 2, all the way through to number 7, with the exception of number 6, which we don't have. Since this is the speaker section, that's the audio output transformer. We don't have it. But the rest of them we have to ohm out with the multimeter. So I decided to start up here with T1 and T2 first. And I blew it up and printed it out. And this is what we got. And starting in the next video, we're going to check out this coil right here, which is, this is T1. Over here is this set of coils, which is T2. We'll ohm out the coil for T1 and the coil for T2, and I'll show you how that's done. And then if we have time after the next, after we get done with that in the next video, then we'll go ahead and move on and maybe do one of the IF coils as well. So if you want to stick with me on this from beginning to end, it's going to be a long project. I want everybody to know that. And I think we can bring it back to life, I hope. The biggest problem is going to be these IF cans, I think, and these two coils. If these are muffed up, we got a real problem on our hands. In particular, T1. The caps, no problem. Of course, the transformer, believe it or not, I have a replacement if this one's no good. So I'm not too troubled about that. But these cans and these coils here, and the oscillator at the bottom, that's it. If they test out bad, then we might as well stop right there. And we'll pick it up there next time. Once again, I appreciate all the great comments on the last battery radio series we did, and all of the comments I just got on Mishmash number 11, where my grandson, we all went down to Mesquite, Texas, and had a wonderful time at that karate tournament. I appreciate all the good comments on that. So until next time, I'm glad you came along for this show, and we'll see you for part 2. Until then, this is John.